So, Tim,
Hi.
here we are. We're back. I'm curious. I'm thinking a lot about local television stations lately. How,
Okay.
in your media background, NWA and Western International Initiative, how involved were you with local TV?
Not in the first 10 years, not more when I had broader responsibility for all of the buying at the ad initiative. So some, but not in my formative years.
So we know we're in an election year. Billions of
Right.
dollars flow into local TV stations. I think it's going to be somewhere between 12 and 13 billion dollars, and they generate far more cash flow at TV station business than any other legacy TV business, certainly. I'm going to circle back to why I'm asking you about local TV because and why I've been thinking about local TV. Even though we're a few weeks out from it, critics and pundits are still talking about the fight between Colbert and CBS over the James Tallarico interview.
Yep.
Not totally connected, but also not disconnected. Anderson Cooper didn't re-sign with 60 Minutes, which is a little bit of a, it was $2 million in salary versus his 13 million that he re-signed with CNN for. But a little bit of a slap in the face to Barry Weiss, who's taken over CBS News. And there's a story I know you care a lot about since you pay a lot of attention to the Super Bowl and to NFL. And we talked about separately about the halftime show and Sinclair Broadcasting counter-programming the Super Bowl halftime show with its own Kid Rock All-American halftime show. And I want to come back to that, but I want to ask you what you think about the fact that Sinclair did that not on their television stations, but on their digital channels. They own 193 local TV stations, 21 of which are NBC affiliates. So they competed with themselves in some way. So what do you think about that?
Yeah. So keeping it from being political. So I'm going to try to keep it only on the professional side, which will be hard. But I guess they're just leaning into appetites that are out there, that are feeling underserved in that moment, not in general, but in that moment of Bad Bunny having the stage and the controversy over it's all going to be in Spanish and why don't we have an American on, even though he's from Puerto Rico. In that moment, I think they saw an opportunity to lean into something that might a large enough constituency that felt underserved in the moment. And so that's what they did.
Well, I'm going to bridge the political and the professional response. When I was at CBS Television, I worked in the stations division many years ago, but CBS any company was only allowed to own 5 television stations at the time. And now allowed to own technically only up to 40%, 39% of the households in the U.S. But
is that the number? That's the number, 39%?
39% now, but when they only count UHF signals, which are now because of cable and satellite, they're much more available. It really goes up to almost 80% of the country that one company can own. So there's a huge political interest, especially with their profitability, in the regulatory reality, because networks aren't regulated. It's the stations at NBC, CBS, and ABC, and Fox that are regulated. So that's where certainly there's SEC issues, and with Warner Brothers Discovery and Paramount and Netflix, you've got those realities regulatory-wise. But the real regulatory issue is the federal government, the FCC, licenses those television stations. And so companies like Sinclair that are their business is around local television, and even the networks who have huge profitability and cash flow around those television stations have a real financial interest and issue around the viability of their local television business. So I think in the next few months, and certainly in the next couple of years, we're going to see tremendous action around the owners of the networks that own the television stations. We've seen Versant spin out of NBC, so the network still has the stations. That affiliated business model at the networks, I think, is going to be coming into question. It's one of the reasons some of the investors tell, companies like Disney to spin out their television network. It's because of the stations that are the challenge in the regulatory confrontation. So I think that's a dynamic that we're going to see unfolding in the next few years in our business.
And when it unfolds, does the content change? So what will change besides the financial structure?
Well, what I think the whole Kid Rock issue and the television stations, first of all, the syndication business has dried up. We're seeing the daytime network business, soap operas pretty much gone away.
Correct.
We're seeing a lot of the daytime talk shows drying up, and a lot of inventory is going to go back to the station groups to control and build out. So we'll almost see other network opportunities building up around the station business with more dominance of local programming, which I think is a healthy trend. But when the ownership is politically inclined and invested in their programming, such as we have at Sinclair, that makes political statements and controls that connection to the local community, I think it's a very powerful issue for the industry to be considering.
Right. Yeah, we're going to have to watch it play out, but it certainly seems like it is ripe for some change.
It's happening. We're seeing it, and I think we're going to see investors and not just pundits, but investors and investing analysts look at that station relationship. And I think the way the Warner Brothers Discovery issue is playing out and the way a lot of the issues around that are playing out will have an impact. The way NBC and Versant, what's happening to Versant after Warner Brothers Discovery plays out, let's see how Versant plays out in that next step, because I think that's going to put a whole industry in place. So it's kind of fascinating for people like you and me who have, watched the industry unfold over the last, several decades to see how dynamic it is right now.
Right,
and kind of in a way exciting to be following.
I'm glad you raised it. So greetings, humans, and welcome to Lead Human. I'm Tim Spengler, along with my co-host, Mr. Jack Myers. And we're both part of the ACAST Creator Network. And our show, Lead Human, each week in about 30 minutes, aims to prove that even though there's so much talk and need for data and dashboards and AI today, that the real competitive advantage in business is still more of a human one and more about unleashing the human potential. This is Lead Human.
And Tim, our guest this week is Will Ferguson.
Jack, do you know when you meet somebody like in the first 5 minutes, they have this twinkle in their eye and they have this sort of optimism and calmness about them, and you think, boy, I'd love to work with somebody like that. And that was my experience when I first met Will Ferguson. I was at Dentsu. It was, I think, 2019. Someone had suggested that I meet him, and we had an opening on our team. And, from the moment I met Will, I was like, this is a guy who I would love to have around us. And so he came onto the Dentsu M1 team. Since then, he's been promoted 5 times inside of Dentsu in 5 years. He's most recently just went to Publicis to be the chief growth officer of Razorfish. He's a military veteran. 8 years, retired as he left as first lieutenant. We'll talk about that certainly. And so he brings that to it. He also, I'm interested to listen to how he's going to be working now inside of a big company as chief growth officer. There's obviously a lot of time going to be spent on new business pitches, and so he'll be doing that, I know, and we'll talk about that. But then also integrating your division inside of a large company and finding the pockets of opportunity inside of the whole Publicis machine. I'm going to be really interested in hearing about Will.
Tim, I think the military experience it really relates to what you just described, is trying to fit your own organization, your own team into a bigger organization. There's nothing quite as big as the military. But What I really love and I think is fascinating also about Will, he's ethics commissioner for the town of Fairfield, Connecticut.
That's
And
cool.
that is cool and so relevant to the things we talk about on Lead Human. So I'm so happy that you introduced me to Will and that we get to have this conversation with him.
Let's bring him on.
Okay, so Will, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we're grateful to have you. Glad you're joining us.
So let's jump right in. So we like to start off each of these episodes with the same grounding question, okay? And it's a question not about what you do. It's a question about who you are. So Will, as a person, as a human being, tell us, what's it like to be you? And who are you?
Oh, it's a great one. I think it's complicated to be me at times. I'm blessed to have had a diverse range of experiences in my personal life and my professional life. And so there's a lot of inputs that have gone into, who I am as an individual, as a family man, as a leader,
Sure.
and as an advertiser. And so complicated is probably the first word that comes to mind.
Uh-huh.
And and then very introspective, right? I'm constantly thinking about what I'm doing, how I'm acting, how I'm perceived, how I'm impacting, and trying to understand, like, where can I be a better student, be a better leader, be a better follower, be a better partner. And so trying to make through all that noise and figure out what the news is, and just, improve every day.
Okay, so introspective. So go a little deeper. What's on your mind? And it may be, and we're going to get to the military in a minute, but that may be that may be a pre your time in the Army, or it may be post. But what do you mean? So tell us more.
Yeah, like all of us, I think, I'm always flawed, right? Like, we're always looking to improve, and
Hmm.
there's plenty to work on. And one of the things for me that has driven, I think, a lot more introspection is empathy is not a natural tool set for me. I think it's something I've always kind of known. And having gone through some professional development training, leaning into Clifton's strengths, I have the data points now to point to it and say, in my toolkit, empathy is pretty low on the chart when I'm dealing with conflict or challenges or problems or just growth. And it's one that, even, 10, 12 years ago when this got identified in a more data oriented way, it was something that clearly was becoming an important attribute, I think, for good enterprise level leadership,
Right.
and something that just makes you as a better human, right? A better partner in every way. And so it's something that I've been hyper conscious of. I think I was a little offended when it first came to light.
It
And
surprises
then,
me, knowing you. That surprises me as one of the, and we did the Clifton Strengths at Dentsu, right? Was that the first time you did it?
yes,
Okay, right.
that
So
was the first time I had done it. Yeah.
right, and I don't remember that, each person, but that surprises me that was low on the score. But keep going.
It surprises me too, actually. And, then it started to make more sense, which is, I would masquerade empathy. And this is what some of the career coaches have said, is like, it doesn't mean that you don't have empathy. It's just that you don't leverage it in the initial reaction. But that to do what I've been able to do professionally and personally, I've probably been masquerading empathy. So I've leaned into things like achiever and responsibility and
Mhm.
leadership, and use that to come together as something that manifests itself as empathetic, but just not the natural tool to go to. And so I have spent, most of my professional development focusing on that, right? And like, how do I use empathy more? How am I conscious of that? And when I'm analyzing a situation, rather than jumping right into those like achiever, competitiveness, leadership traits to move things forward, to take a beat and think a little bit more about, am I being empathetic? And then almost more importantly, am I being perceived as empathetic, right? Is just because I've done the analysis internally is one thing. It's important that people feel met where they are, right? And so trying to bring that to life. So that's been a lot of the introspection, is thinking about qualities like that. Like, how do I make sure that not only am I putting the work in, but is it being perceived and articulated well to the other party?
And some of the
Interesting.
things that I've learned in my work will relate directly to that. And some of the qualities in being perceived as empathetic is being a good listener, of creating a
Mm-hmm.
sense among others that they belong, and that you facilitated a sense of belonging within the organization. But as I was looking at your background, I was interested in your decision, what appears to be a decision to go back to school and get your MBA after having finished your bachelor's degree 10 years earlier. So, given especially a lot of the questions today around education and with technology and
Mhm.
engineering coming forward, what was the decision to go back and get your MBA all about?
I think it's that kind of constant, again, back to the introspection and kind of maybe a little bit of self-doubt of, am I staying on the cutting edge? Am I taking advantage of every opportunity in front of me? Like, where are my blind spots? And so the timing worked out really nicely. I had a great opportunity to take advantage of some military and veterans benefits at the University of Connecticut, and really re-enter the program and be a student again, right? And it was a great opportunity to learn how to follow, learn how to partner, right? And folks from varying degrees. There are some partners in that program who were fresh out of their undergrad, and there are others who have had accomplished and storied careers and are accelerating, and some who are changing careers. And so it kind of served exactly what I was looking for, which is diverse perspectives, opportunities for me to work in a team environment like that, and hopefully bring something to the table and help my cohort, but also take some other perspectives out. And it gave me a good opportunity to lead and also to think about some more of the more diverse aspects of marketing and business in general. After having been at the agency side for some time. Yeah.
As you look at building a team today, as opposed
Mhm.
to in the past, what are the qualities you're looking for in your team, and how important is education in that?
I think education is important, but education comes in a lot of different forms, right? And I think that's what we've learned, and I'm sure we'll talk about at some point. My time in the military, like that's a huge part of my education and my career development, right? And so, I've had the blessing of working in startup environments where some of my counterparts never finished a year of college, right? And some of them are as good at their craft as anyone else and as good as a leader as anyone else because they had a different life experience. And so I think education is important, but it's education with a small e. I think there's a ton of value to the formal higher education environment, but there's also a ton of value of bringing folks who have come from trades or the military or just came straight out of high school and figured they had to go to work and build a career. And I think what's been nice over the last 5 to 10 years is we've seen there's a lot more aptitude from companies to say, I'm going to bring those folks into my organization. There is value just because there isn't a degree at the end of those experiences. It doesn't mean they're without merit.
That's cool. Will, let's talk about your time in the military, specifically with the lens of leadership. So I'm sure there's a million things that you experienced, you saw with other leaders. Tell us about the ones that bubble up as the best ones that you take away, that you put into practice every day. And then maybe if there's one or two that you make sure not to do, but it's too good of a story not to tell, do that too. Tell us that too.
Yeah, I could definitely do that. No, I mean, I think my first company commander when I commissioned, I'm a bright-eyed, bushy-tailed lieutenant. I'm now in my early 20s and in charge of 35 to 40 professional soldiers, right? And that's a tall task to undertake right away. And my first company commander gave me two pieces of advice on day one in his office. And the first, which I think is holds true in almost every environment, is I will manage metrics. Metrics are my life. Repeat that over and over again and make sure you manage your metrics. But also to remember that it's the soldiers that make the unit, right? Not the leaders. And so when we talk about like servant leadership, particularly in the military, and the idea of, officers eat last, right? You got to make sure you bring enough food for everyone. And if you don't, you're the one who's going to suffer, not the soldiers, right? And to never put yourself in a position to take from your men and women, and instead to be always giving leadership to them. I think those are such wide, it gives you such wide berth to be a good leader if you can manage those two things. Like the metrics help you with the politics and managing up in the organization, but the philosophy around soldiers coming first and you really working for them and to their benefit and managing their careers, helps you build an organization of trust.
So that's how you got that on day one and you remember it. That's pretty cool.
I was taught it on day one. I don't know that I got it on day
Oh,
one.
right.
I definitely had plenty of hiccups, but it was a good grounding. And he was he was a really patient leader too, which I think was great. And he he had a 5 or 6 of us young lieutenants in his
Right.
command, and he, in addition to running a company, managed to do a really good job of kind of growing us.
Cool. All right. Any other ones on the plus side? Because that's a good one. Any other ones on the plus side, and then any juicy ones not to do?
On the plus side, I think the other one was the first time when we deployed into Afghanistan, having a company commander who had been there before. It showed you the value of that experience, and having someone who's been in a complex environment and able to act with a level of agility and
Mhm.
decision making. I think when you're in garrison and more in the the state side of operations, things can feel a little bit corporate at times, and that doesn't entirely go away in a combat environment, but there is just a different level of leadership, and his ability to flex between those two things I thought was really important. I think it showed, how do you know when to go through protocols and all the rigor and all the manage the politics, and how do you know when to just act, right? And I think as a leader, like knowing when to act and how to have inspired troops behind you who understand the mission and understand and trust the decisions that you're making goes a long way.
Talking about Afghanistan and the realities there, and some of the conflicts that are going on now with some of the people you worked with. Talk about the people and the how you worked with the Afghanis and the realities, and how you felt humanity and the things we're talking about today are differed in building those relationships.
I think being in that environment was eye-opening for a lot of folks, right? I think you can feel very distant, right? Like the cultures are very different. I think the way that we think sometimes can be very different, but there is a level of humanity that's kind of evergreen throughout all of us. And what you found is that most folks were actually more similar to you than different, right? Their way of life, their day to day may look very different, but they're just trying to get through their day, right? And they're trying to take care of their families. They're trying to act with a level of empathy and a level of worship to something higher that's driving them. And most folks were quite welcoming, right? And I think that was kind of surprising, is we were embraced with open arms by children, village elders. Most places that we went, folks understood that, just like them, we're just humans that are here for a higher power doing a job. And it was refreshing, and I think kind of surprising at first. And then by the end, it maybe changed a lot of perspective for folks who had thought we were there for maybe different reasons. And, I think it's very fitting that the motto of the war was, hearts and minds, right? It's like that we weren't there to enact a new way of life. You're not there to destroy. You're there to win the hearts and minds of the people over, and try to help them understand why you're there, and then have them carry on a way of life afterwards, after we leave.
Good question, Jack. I like that. Any other ones on the military you want to ask them?
I as Will, you and I went back a little before this about some of the work that I've done at Syracuse University with their Institute for Military Families and Veterans, and
Mm-hmm.
the value of the military. You mentioned that it helped underwrite your MBA at the Connecticut School of Business. Talk about how the military today is a value back to society and culture, and to team building.
Yeah, for sure. Listen, I think historically speaking, the military tends to be on the cutting edge of kind of bringing to diverse teams together. You got folks from all over the country. You actually have folks sometimes that are not from the United States that are serving, which is an incredible sacrifice and moment of bravery from them, which I think we're always grateful for. And you end up in these interdisciplinary teams that are in complex environments trying to solve complex problems, and need to be agile. And it's like I'm hard pressed to find any corporate organization that isn't facing a similarly themed challenge, particularly in today's environment. And so that as a base level is just that's what everyone is doing once they join the military. And I think there's a level of selflessness too, right? A lot of the purpose of basic training and a lot of the training schools is a bit of breaking down the individual to understand that you are only as successful as the unit around around you. Like you can be a great practitioner, craftsman, leader, but you are not going to get anywhere alone in a combat environment. And so I think that level of humility and like understanding that there's a larger team objective, I think it lends itself really well to enterprise leadership and understanding that you might have a responsibility to a team underneath you, but you are part of something much bigger, and it all moves together or it doesn't move at all. And so I think those skills are hard to come by. In the civilian world, I think sometimes it's only afforded to folks who have made it to a certain level in their career, and it's just day one for most folks in the military. And then of course there's lots of, you got folks managing big books of property, large teams, and there's also all sorts of financial and operations and logistical functions as well that are nice and easily translatable. But I think I find when I run into other veterans in the industry, or we have the privilege of hiring them, it shows. You can tell right away just the way that they approach a job and the way that they can fold into a team quite nicely.
So you are not bigger than the team, and you can't get done without the team. So that little kernel there, that is part of agency life, part of your success, getting promoted 5 times in 5 years. Did you bring that to the yes, you did. I double checked. Yeah. Is that part of the mindset you brought to the jobs?
Yeah, I think so, right? It can be challenging to navigate, increasingly complex hybrid organizations that are structured in ways that make sense for the larger business. It can be easy to get lost in, I think, when you're part of the machine. I think it goes back to my relentless curiosity and the fact that I understand that this is a great way to succeed, is that you're moving something larger forward than yourself. If you're a media person, that's great. Like you might have your craft. I was a paid social buyer by trade when I started. It's a lot bigger than paid social, right? Like there's more to be done. And so how does that fit into the picture really nicely? And so I think that's always been my attitude is, how can I selfishly get exposure, learn, understand how things connect, but then also, for the benefit of the organization, what can I bring that's different? What perspective can I play in, and how can I help, work on projects larger than my day to day? And I do think that has been integral to my success, because it's made me, I think, a better contributor and a better leader. But it also just affords you exposure, right? You get to meet other people who are looking to solve problems of their own. When they see someone who is, has a drive and is willing to help and exercise a bit of selflessness and humility, like those are folks you want to take with you. And so, I'm grateful for folks like yourself, Tim, who saw that and were like, okay, I'm going to move this person into a role that, I think he can do successfully. You might not look it on paper, but we're going to take a chance and give some exposure. And I think, again, that's something I've carried forward of, there's the resume on paper, and then there's the opportunity for a person to grow, and how do you get in front of that person and, interrogate a little bit into what their values are and their core skill sets. And it's less about the tactical work that they've done and more about what they can do and how you can lead them.
Well, I'm going to spin out on the word values that you just used, because one of the things that you've written and spoken about is your passion and fascination around how purpose-driven values are maintained in a modern marketing environment. So can you talk a bit about how you see purpose-driven values being maintained in a technology and AI and data-driven business world?
Of course. And I think this is the longest anyone's ever chatted in our industry without mentioning AI in the last year. So it's pretty good that we made it this far. No, it's great. And listen, it's terribly important. Listen, I think when we talk about AI technology and data, these are qualifiers and force multipliers, right? People are the differentiators, and I think we find that every day. It's what people can do with it, and I think one of the great opportunities ahead of us is that this democratized access to these qualifiers and force multipliers. When everyone has access to tools and tech, that doesn't make the business stand out. It's about the people who are the catalyst of what that can build and what that can lead to. And I think the growth opportunity for individuals, for organizations is just tremendous. And you're going to start to see innovation come from pockets of your organization that you might not have found it historically, right? You're going to have more early career folks who maybe have more exposure and better ability to use these tools. We're going to be coming up and bringing their creativity into those tools and create something out of it. And man, like talk about a career accelerator opportunity for someone who's starting out early. You don't have to earn your stripes or cut your teeth as much anymore. Like you have the ability to create something tremendous. So I think that's my posit on the AI tech and data enablement. And so I think, again, what's going to shine through is the values of folks who are acting with creativity, but also know how to operate in a complex matrix environment where you've got these accelerants. And so, when I'm looking and evaluating talent and folks that I want to work with, I'm looking at drive. Right, it's a hard thing to teach. You want someone who's you want to motivate folks as best you can to the mission, but someone who's got that inherent drive and that hunger in them is so important. And someone who's going to act with high levels of trust and with that, I think a bit of vulnerability, right? I think there's a mutual vulnerability among team members, among leaders and followers, and to say, and it's a hard thing to do. It requires a lot of humility and introspection. But the more that we can operate with that candor in a team environment, the quicker we can get to solutions, and the quicker that we can evolve.
You're now as Chief Growth Officer of Razorfish. That's as we've talked, a combination of the standard, new business pitches, stated competitors. There's a brief and multiple rounds and all that stuff. But then there's also, as you were telling me, the opportunity to grow inside of Publicis, and that's another part of your job. And so because a really important aspect of leadership and growth is the ability to navigate internally. So I know you've done that well, and I know that was part of the interview process. It had to have been. I say I know it had to have been part of the interview process for this job, because we did talk about is an important aspect of what they wanted you to bring to it. So give us some of your what are your tips for success about the navigating internally the complex organizations? And Publicis, I don't know how many people, 20 different divisions you could possibly collaborate with, right? Or want to, and do they want to with you? The ultimate frenemy. I've been inside the agency, holding company. It's kind of the ultimate frenemy. So how do you make that work successfully? Tell people about that.
For sure. There are a lot of great agencies in here, right? And I think the ability for us to team together through the power of one, which is talked about often, it's incredible. And I think the smartest thing you can do sometimes, and it's the approach that I take as a new leader here, is use my ears a lot more than I use my mouth, particularly in the beginning, right? And learn and absorb. And there's a leadership philosophy from the top, right? With this idea of the power of one, of organizing ourselves around our clients, right? And bringing the best of the network together. And so the smartest thing I think someone could do coming into this organization is lean into that, learn about it, go to the accounts where that's being executed well, and learn how they're doing it and how it came to life. Right. Listen, nothing is done in our world without challenges and hardship. If it came easy, anyone could do it. But the proof is in the pudding, in the way that things have been working here. It's incredible to see and to get the exposure to that. And like I said, it starts at the top. The philosophy from the top down is right. No silos, no solos, no bozos, right? And man, if you can just have that playing in the back of your head every day, it's going to be pretty hard to mess this up, right? There's so much talent internally. So yes, like my job is to help grow the Razorfish brand, and that's the jersey I wear most of the time. But there's times for me to put on the group level jersey, right, and play for that team and think about, what are we doing as Razorfish to push the organization forward, and what am I doing to help my sister agencies in the right moments? And I think, again, it goes back to this principle of enterprise leadership of like, I am responsible for sure my little fiefdom, but I'm part of a leadership team that's responsible for Razorfish, and I'm part of a leadership team that ladders up into a much larger organization. And I think once you understand that it's bigger again than yourself and like your day-to-day responsibility, and just act kind of like with that in the back of your head at all times, it helps you make smarter decisions. And it also, again, just gets you good exposure to folks who are willing to help you and step across the lines and bring your agency forward too. So I find it hard pressed for us to be unsuccessful in a successful group environment, right? It's better for us.
Tim, I know we're winding down on our time, but I have to ask, I have to make this comment, ask this question. There have been a lot of great leaders who have passed through Razorfish. Rashad Tabakawala, one of the true legends and publicists, leaders. Bob Lord, who's now at Horizon Media. But I never, in all my relationships with Razorfish, I never really asked, what is a razorfish? So I did a little homework and learned that a razorfish is actually a coral shrimp fish. Lives in the coral reefs of the Indo-West Pacific. And what's interesting, and I think relevant to the creation or development of the originators who decided on the name, is that it has armor-thin, transparent plates. It almost looks like a feather, so armor-thin, transparent plates, but a sharp spine that it moves forward with. So can you take just a couple minutes to show how the name applies to the business realities?
Did you know that stuff,
Absolutely.
by the way?
I mean, I do. The provenance of things is something that I'm obsessed with. And so, the founding of the Razorfish name, which is actually quite interesting, which was going through the dictionary and landing on words until something that sounded good and differentiated landed. But in the spirit of drawing parallels, I think there are a few. I think the transparency bit is, a cornerstone of our industry moving forward, right? It's like, how do we operate with transparency and trust with our clients and with each other? The razor thin armor, we got to be fast and we got to be agile, but we also got to have a little bit of a thick skin, right? We have to barrel through some stuff, and we've got challenges ahead of us. It's clear, right? Like in the marketplace, there's a lot of disruption happening. In marketing in general, there's a lot of disruption at a lot of clients. There's a lot of disruption at a lot of agencies right now, and so I think it is good that we have our spikes out a little bit and are prepared for what lies ahead. And yeah, this swim vertically, so we're always vertically oriented. I think that's important too. But yeah, no, I actually have a lot of love for the Razorfish name and the brand and what it's meant for the last 30 plus years. And you're right, there are a lot of great leaders who have come through it. There's a lot of great leaders who are here right now. And so it's incredibly humbling as someone who's a student of advertising to be sitting here in Razorfish purple. It's pretty cool.
That's great, Will.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks. As I told Jack, when I first met you, you had that little twinkle in your eye. And so I think he can probably see some of that. It was great to have you. Wise beyond your years also. The whole take a pause thing. I mean, I think I'm still working on that one. But I love the listen first. I love the take a pause. That's a tough one. I love the listen first. I also love the find out where it's working well already and try to replicate that. That was really smart. And I think a lot of people can take that. So thanks again.
Of course.
And I want to thank all our listeners for joining today. And if today's conversation made you think or feel differently about leadership, please share our conversation with Will today. And you can also subscribe wherever you listen. Help us join this movement to lead human. Because Jack and I are out to prove that even though machines are starting to take over the world, as we talk today with Will, the real advantage is still a human one. And this has been Lead Human.